Christians would be surprised to know that there's a lot of evidence for the resurrection of Jesus.
No, there's actually not. Legit, the best evidence of a resurrection that I've heard comes from Frank Turek, who explains how the Pauline Creed, the creed in, 1 Corinthians 15, 3 through 8 or something like that, that particular creed, I think, is the best evidence that you could get for like a resurrection or something like that. Well, like actually happening, I guess, because...
So I'm going to jump in real quick, and I'll let you jump in as well. But that's horse manure. And actually, I don't know if you heard of Gary Habermas's minimal facts. I'll just name them really quick. Now, this is a lesson for brainless engineer, because after IP, I think he merits that. Like, he goes to Wikipedia and all these other stupid things. But here's 6 minimal facts that all, not just one, all, except for Richard Carrier, who's like a fringe crazy lunatic that no one even really gives credence to. But here's the 6 minimal facts that Gary Habermas himself has put his own credibility on the line, so he can't lie about this.
I've extensively responded to Gary Habermas and his minimal facts. His minimal facts either aren't facts or don't support the conclusion that Jesus rose from the dead. So I'm not going to put my audience through you regurgitating Gary Habermas's ideas like they're something novel. Also, I rarely use Wikipedia to source my information. I use authors like Randall Helms, John Dominic Crossan, Richard Carrier, Richard Purvo, Raphael Lataster, and many other historians that are actually experts in the field of history. I find it utterly hilarious that 2 seemingly uneducated amateur YouTube apologists call Richard Carrier a fringe crazy lunatic and that nobody gives him serious credence. I mean, he has a PhD from Columbia University in ancient history, specifically Greece and Rome. The Journal of Early Christian Studies didn't consider Carrier to be a fringe lunatic, or that nobody gave him any kind of credence when they published his paper on the references to Jesus in Josephus's work. That paper was also peer-reviewed. Richard also has 2 peer-reviewed books specifically on the history of Jesus. He's also collaborated with many other historians in this particular subject area. Also, the whole Gary wouldn't lie and put his credibility on the line thing, I mean, what kind of credibility do you think Gary Habermas has? It's definitely not historical credibility. I mean, he's good at apologetics and convincing Christians to stay Christian. And he teaches at Liberty University, which is kind of barely a university. Some would say that it's not a university at all. But that's because of how low its standards are. Gary is refuted by other Christian historians like Robert Van Voorst because the history that Gary does is very flawed. The idea that we should implicitly trust Gary Habermas on this issue because he wouldn't lie is just foobarred reasoning.
I don't know, I'm just dumbfounded that he would say, I don't know, I guess I'm still stuck on the first point he made, that we can have Paul, but we can't use the Gospels. And it's just crazy that he did not give an argument for that. He just said it. It just goes, you can have Paul, but you can't use the Gospels. All right, now let's get on to the video.
Ryan, how would you make a case for the resurrection for somebody who does not believe the Bible is authoritative?
So we have Paul, and the best evidence we have is the 1 Corinthians passage. Well, I guess what he's referring to is that passage goes back to an earlier source, like the Q document, what scholars call the Q source. And in that sense, the Q source isn't just used by Paul. So I would say he needs to be consistent with his standard.
So first of all, the Q source is not a real source. It's hypothetical, with no way of distinguishing it from Mark. Mark Goodacre, a Christian historian, makes a very good case for doubting the existence of Q. To talk like Q is an actual document is really disingenuous. Next, I'm remaining consistent, you dipshits, because I'm following the rules of the video that I'm reviewing, with the one concession that I made. You guys are complaining about the Christians framing the video to exclude the Bible, and then you're blaming me for excluding the Bible. But I would contend that y'all are the ones that are being inconsistent here, because earlier you harped on the Gary Habermas 6 minimal facts thing, and Gary Habermas doesn't actually attribute the Pauline Creed to the Q document. He actually attributes them to Peter and James from Galatians 1. Also, the Q source would not contain the Pauline Creed. All the Q source does, supposedly, is contain sayings of Jesus. The Pauline Creed would not be a saying of Jesus. I mean, maybe you guys need to remain consistent in the bullshit apologetics you spit out.